It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley attended the Windows 10 preview in San Francisco. Will you like it? Do they like it? Are you going to get it? Find out next. Windows Weekly is coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 382, recorded September 30th, 2014. Windows Thurrott Foley, WTF. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code WINDOWS. And by ShareFile by Citrix. Enhance your workflow. Send files of almost any size easily and securely with Citrix ShareFile. Try ShareFile today. For a 30-day free trial, go to sharefile.com, click the microphone, and enter the code WINDOWS. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that bakes all the Microsoft goodness of the week into a souffle and that lets it fall like a flan in a cupboard. With me for the fall are the master chefs of Redmond themselves, Mr. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, in-house. That's right, they were here in San Francisco for the special Microsoft Windows 10. Now is it? Not Windows TH,
10.
Not Windows 9?
Yep.
Windows 10
I still wanted
preview.
TH.
Threshold was just such a good name.
Yeah.
I
He
thought
wanted
it
it for
stood for
Thurrott. Yeah, I knew that.
Of course, that's Paul Windows TH Thurrott from the Win Super site. He is the guru, the brain behind them. And Miss Mary Jo Foley, the mastermind behind ZDNet's All About Microsoft blog. Paul, Mary Jo, thank you very much for being in-house. You're probably a little tired, yeah?
I'm sorry, what?
How much of this information is actually making it through
right.
your exhausted brains right now?
It was something about souffle, and then
Yeah.
I don't remember the rest.
Cupboards.
All right, now we've got to start with the obvious top story in all the Microsoft world right now, because there was a preview to which very few people were invited.
You're talking about the MSN preview.
I know.
that one.
Wait. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about that, the MSN preview. So one of the untold stories of today is that they're deprecating Bing. So the whole Bing branding is kind of going away.
I wouldn't say they're deprecating Bing overall. I'd say they're repositioning it, and repositioning MSN, I think, is the way to think of it.
Mary Jo, what do you think about that? Because Bing, they were really pushing. They wanted the Bing branding. Now they're kind of pulling back. They're saying, look, Bing still exists. It's still search. You still have Bing. You have Cortana. But MSN is the environment that you live in. That's the ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is what they're saying. And, you know, I had a lot of people asking me about that today. And the thing to remember is there's like 430 million people who visit MSN.com every
None of them in the
month.
United States, by the way.
We don't know them, but there are other people. And, you know, that is a huge brand still. And portals, I guess, ask Yahoo, it's still a thing, right?
Right.
Right.
Right. Sure.
So, yeah.
I mean, I honestly, the weirdest thing about this to me as an American is just that they're using some brand from the past, you know?
Right.
And I see that a lot in the comments. People, I'll never use these now because of MSN, you know, which is kind of short-sighted.
Even though it's the exact same app.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So all the things that were like Bing Finance, Bing Travel, Bing Weather, those are all now MSN.
So
Travel, Finance.
here's the way, here's a sort of rationale for that. You know, when I would write about this kind of thing for one of the books, I would refer to these things as Bing content apps to sort of separate them from the Bing app, which is obviously for search, and then from like Bing Maps, which is not a content app per se, right? It's you know, navigation. MSN makes more sense from a content perspective, just as a brand, you know.
Yeah.
But was that really the thing? Was it just brand confusion? Because I've been confused on what they've been trying to do with MSN, Bing, and Live. Because I felt as if they were trying to merge things, but they were still trying to keep the brand strong. In your mind, does this make it clear about what each service does?
No.
Oh.
So, but I in a Monday morning quarterback kind of sense, I understand where they're headed with it.
And the thing they're trying to convey, I think, is that now with this new MSN.com portal that they just redid, you're going to be able to sign in there once, and your preferences are going to carry over into these apps, right? So that's the idea. And it's not like here's these MSN apps and here's MSN.com. They're trying to make the idea that this is one integrated thing now.
And they are. I mean, arguably, right?
Yeah.
So if you have configured favorite sports teams and sports in the sports apps, either in the phone or on Windows, those things come through on the web now.
Yep.
So they do integrate in that sense.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well.
Top story, yep.
Let's go
Big
to the
stuff.
top story. Top story. Now, actually, let's get away from the top story.
Right,
because
right.
I think MSN was the top story because that's the thing that's going to put Microsoft over the top. It's all about Windows 10.
What's this now?
Windows 10. Not Windows 9,
Right.
not Windows Thurrott, but Windows 10. Both of you were at the preview. This is a highly anticipated event at which Microsoft was supposed to reveal the thing that was going to put Windows back.
See the backs of our heads there.
Yeah.
I am taking a photo.
Right. So you say that this is your best side.
Yep.
You were front row.
Yeah.
Was that just because you got there early, or did they say, hey?
No, I actually elbowed aside Peter Bright and Alex Wilhelm to get in
I
first.
saw you do that.
Physically.
You tackled someone.
Yep.
He did.
All right.
I'm a big guy, so I can do that kind of thing. And then I saved seats for
did.
Mary Jo and Ed just to further, enrage those two other people who had to then sit further back in the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Now,
No, actually, everything I just said is true.
It is.
But
that's
anyway.
how these things work?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the next time we have one of these events, I could just
And
bully
Alex
my
bought
way
me a
in.
coffee this morning, too, and I still elbowed
You
him
still
right in the
elbowed him?
kidneys. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yep.
All's fair in love and Microsoft events.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of the 10 preview, what would you say is the number one thing that you saw that will be important in terms of enterprise? Because this was an enterprise event. This was supposed to reassure people that Windows 10 is now your upgrade option.
I think the teacher's pet would like to answer this question.
Command prompt.
Okay, yes. Tell me.
They're redoing the command prompt so that you can do a lot of things that you couldn't before, like copy and paste, and it's kind of like Notepad.
You can do
in
it
a
today,
way.
but it's non-standard. So you have to
right.
bring up that window command
Right,
button.
but
and go
now
in.
it's all integrated in,
Yeah.
right? And there's a great post that Raphael did on his blog within Windows. If you want to know every little tiny detail about the new command
Somebody
prompt.
will.
Somebody will.
Okay, wait.
I'm just kidding about the command prompt.
I use command prompt
See?
all the time.
Yeah.
I have the icon on my desktop so that I can run it as administrator
Right.
every time I want to run it. But, I mean, that is kind of important for people who are running in the enterprise
is.
because I use it all the time.
Right.
Well, I think of it more as a little kind of fine-tune closing the loop kind of feature. Something that's been stupid about command prompt ever since there was a command prompt. It just was non-standard in those ways. Couldn't select text, couldn't copy paste, et cetera. So to me, it's just one of the many things they're doing to fine-tune and make things consistent. So on that note, it's a positive development. I wouldn't have listed it first, but it's, it's...
This is someone who uses Notepad, so you know.
Sure. Which, by the way, is true. We're driving here in the car, going 80 miles an hour on the, the 110 or whatever that was. And
101.
101, whatever.
I don't know.
I'm from Massachusetts. So she's writing.
We were
in
writing our
WordPad,
stories in the back of the car
in
because we had a
in
driver.
Notepad
brought
full
us up here.
screen with no word wrap on. What is wrong with you?
I put word wrap on at first.
and then to select the text, she's using her finger.
I know, because my mouse was broken.
Oh, right.
But I would have used my mouse otherwise.
Also, she just wanted to show off the fact that she had a touchscreen.
Yeah.
That's
What's
true.
wrong with that?
Sort of.
That's true.
Yeah.
No?
No.
I don't know.
No?
I thought it was interesting.
Well, how about this? Why is it called Windows 10?
Because what was it? Windows 7, 8, 9?
789.
Like 7. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. All right, so
Little punchy.
You are really, really tired.
We are.
I thought it was funny. That tells you how tired I was.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the justification they used was that there were a lot of obvious names they could have gone with. Windows 1, just Windows. Windows 9 was the next logical one. But they feel like this is a monumental enough release, which is actually laughable in some sense, but that this is a version of Windows, the basic platform that will run on those little embedded devices, on phones, on small tablets, big tablets, PCs of all kinds, 2-in-1s, Xbox One. That's big, and this needs to have a new. It's like skipping a grade. When you're really smart, you move ahead.
And also, I mean, they didn't really state it this way, but they're trying to distance themselves from Windows 8, right?
Yep.
They're saying,
really distance, right?
Yeah.
9 was not distant
skip
enough.
that 9 and just go straight to 10.
Yeah.
And also, they touched on this very briefly, but this is the last major version of Windows, they're saying. And from now on, the way they're going to update it is you're going to get incremental updates on some regular basis if you're signed in as a user on Windows. And that's the way they're going to do it from now on. It's not going to be these every 1 or 2 years is a big bang Windows release. That's over now.
Right.
But wait, to say that is to say, look, we think we've got the formula down.
Yep.
We think the kernel is stable. We think we get the performance out of the operating system that we want. The only thing we have to do is tweak it.
Yeah.
Are we there? Are we able to
Well,
say, look, the engine's solid. We just got to change the body.
I mean, this is already an engine, to use your terminology, that runs on today things that are such, phones, tablets, PCs, all the way up to Microsoft Azure in the cloud. I mean, so I think they have proven that core of the OS does scale already, which goes back to my original comment, which is it's sort of a baloney thing to say that this suddenly with this one, because we're going to call it something different, it's a major change. I mean, really, this is a fairly minor update to Windows 8, I would say, but I think they're trying to, like you said, distance it from that release. So.
Yeah.
So this is all just about getting away from the stink?
Yes.
Somewhat.
Getting upwind. Yes.
But Mary Jo, I'm going to call on your enterprise expertise here
Okay.
again, because we both know, we've talked about this in our respective shows, that one of the biggest problems with Windows 8 was not the kernel. The kernel is actually fantastic. It's more secure, it's faster, it's less buggy than Windows 7.
Right.
It's been the interface, and the
Right.
fact that the interface does not play well with enterprise customers.
Right.
It's not easy to deploy. It's not easy to license, and it's not easy to upgrade.
How dare you?
I know. This is
How
blasphemy, right?
dare
This is
you.
blasphemy. But let's be honest. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's true.
I've been using Windows 8 on all my production machines because it is much more stable. I do a lot of video editing. It's better for video editing. I do a lot of enterprise deployments. I use Windows 7 for that. Does Windows 10 now give that IT director who's looking at an enterprise for his SMB or his small enterprise, does it finally give him the assurance to say, instead of buying a Windows 8 machine and deprecating it to 7, I'm going to buy a Windows 10 machine?
We only saw a very little bit of Windows 10 because this is just very early days, technical preview.
By the way, to be fair, we also only saw a very little bit of actual enterprise features.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Oh, wait. This was an enterprise preview.
I know.
That's the audience for this event.
It's still Microsoft, though.
It is. And, so what they wanted to do was, for this audience, the 50 or so people who were there, they wanted to say, here's what we're doing in the UI that's going to make this more palatable to people who know Windows 7. That was like a really, really big message today. And, the first time, if you're an enterprise user and you saw Windows 8, you were like, oh, what is that? I don't even know how to use that. And they kept showing us the desktop. They showed us how you can run Metro-style apps in the desktop, how you can use things in a more intuitive way with some of the new features that they gave us a little taste of. And the message was, this is exactly how they said it. They said, if you're a Windows 7 user, you're a Prius driver. With Windows 10, we want to make you a Tesla driver, but we don't want to make you relearn how to drive. So the idea is, let's make it cool and interesting and give you some really great features, but let's not make you have to do what you did with Windows 8, which was like,
Relearn
what is
everything.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Now, but actually, I would have to say that, assuming it all works out as planned, and I think it will, the biggest success of this release in many ways is the fact that if you were that minority of people who liked Windows 8, got used to Windows 8, maybe you use Windows 8 on a tablet or 2-in-1 or whatever, you can also make this upgrade, and it will be very natural because on those devices you'll have not identical but very similar touch interfaces. Again, it's an evolution, right, of what was in Windows 8. And so here you have these two completely different things. That was the big joke with Windows 8, right? We have mobile and desktop in the same environment, Frankenstein, Monster. But yet, Windows 7 upgrade, very natural. Windows 8 upgrade, very natural, right? It's not bad.
Yeah. They made a point of saying, because they said, you know what, we do have people who do like Windows 8. We have them. They exist. They're out there somewhere.
I'm one of them, by the way.
I know you do like it.
I like Windows 8.
So they said, we're not abandoning touch. We're going to keep the things that worked with Windows 8.
They're going to change some of them.
They're going to change some of them.
Right. What you just said is that.
And what they showed as an example, the charms. And they said, you know what? maybe the charms are going to change. They're still there, but people actually like some of the swiping.
Still, they're
gestures.
only on touch.
Right.
So if you have a desktop PC or a regular laptop, or you're just using it with a keyboard and mouse, you're never going to see the charms.
Right.
Which I think most people would stand up and applaud.
I did.
Yeah.
I clapped. I clapped once. Did you hear me? It was quiet.
Death of Charms? The Enterprise Death of Charms.
Mary Jo tried to start a wave at one point. It was embarrassing.
She was really tired. And she was hungry.
I was hungry.
They didn't feed you, did they?
Oh, they gave us those little mini
eggs.
They were super cute.
They were not very filling, though. They were
No,
very
they
small.
weren't. They were like eggs that were like about
Like
this
quail
big.
eggs.
It was a quail egg on a little piece of bread with some black beans. And
It was like an egg sandwich from a dollhouse.
Isn't that like rule one of any major event? You keep the press fed.
Yeah,
because
kinda.
a fed press is a happy press.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
There was no champagne either.
No. it was-
A drunk press is a happy press.
yes, right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a Nokia event, right? They always serve
Oh, yes. Alcohol.
at their.
And then you write all these really nice things about the company. It's interesting.
That's right. Actually, okay, I want to go back to this whole idea of Windows 10 is, as you said, it's finally that unified experience.
Yep.
But what does that mean? So we know that it's tiles on the Surface. We know that it's tiles in Windows 8 for phone.
Right.
Windows 10 for desktop, they've modified the tiles. I can now have a tile on the desktop and I can resize it. How does that work?
Well, I think you're okay. So you have tiles on a start screen, right, in Windows 8 and Windows
Right.
Phone. And so in Windows 10, you'll have those on a start menu alongside the other things you would normally have in a start menu in Windows 7. You can resize it. You can do all the stuff you can do in Windows 8. When you run those applications that are tiled, which are those, Metro, modern, immersive, Windows Store, and now they call them universal apps, I guess. So we'll call them universal apps. They don't run in their own, they still sandboxed, right? But they don't run visually in their own environment like they do in Windows 8.
Okay.
They can run on the desktop now, and they run windowed if you want them. They can run full screen, however, they work and look like the other apps.
Yeah.
Does that make it any less confusing? Because right now, Windows 8, the way that I have it on my laptop, I never go into the tiles because I don't understand why I would
It's so
want
jarring
to.
and weird.
You don't need them.
Yeah.
Right, I don't need them. But if maybe if I had the ability to run a tile app as a window on my desktop, resize it just like I do any other window,
So
maybe I start looking at tile
It's
apps.
not just the ability to run an app like that, but you also want it to integrate with the environment properly, right? So in Windows 8 on the start screen, apps can give you these notifications. In Windows 10, they'll do that on the desktop as well. And so if that's, this type of system where you don't have touch, conceivably, I haven't seen this yet, but the mail app would give you little notifications in the taskbar showing you how many unread emails you had, which is something that doesn't work today. Even when you can see the button for it in the taskbar, because when you run that thing, it goes full screen. They're still separate. So it's a more integrated approach.
Yeah. And I know you're looking skeptical.
You do look
I do-
skeptical.
okay.
What's the block here?
The block for me is that, in my experience, tile apps have just been a disaster.
The block is they're tile apps in your head, so you got to get rid of that. So
well, look at the Skype tile app versus the Skype desktop app. I would never use the tile Skype. It's horrible.
first of all, stop calling it tile Skype.
Okay.
And I think that thing improves to the point where that difference becomes less, and maybe the desktop app eventually will go away on this platform too, by the way. Same thing with Internet Explorer. Like, we don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me to discover that you really only have one version of IE in this version of Windows, depending on what type of system you're running and so forth. But you don't really draw a distinction today between .NET apps, a WPF app, an Adobe Air app, or whatever, a web app, a desktop app. I mean, these things are all just applications. I mean, to the user, they run in Windows or full screen or whatever. They sit side by side. They have shortcuts, and they all do the same thing. So they're just bringing these. I keep wanting to call them Metro apps. They're bringing these universal apps, these mobile apps, into the desktop, so that they will just run side by side. They'll act and look naturally. They're just apps. You don't think of them as tile apps. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, the problem for you and for a lot of enterprises is there haven't been a lot of compelling Metro-style apps, right?
Yeah. Name one.
Right. Well, we like the Bing apps that are now the MSN apps.
Well, but you
right?
said for business.
But even like MSN Finance or Bing Finance, it's a pretty good app.
They're nice. Well, the mail app's decent.
The mail app
Xbox
is okay.
Music app is decent.
Right. So if you're somebody who, like me, you're living in the desktop, there might be a few of those that you're like, yeah, you know what, I would use that if it could just stay in the desktop and not be dumping me out into the Metro environment every time I click on one.
It's hard to explain how separated these things are in Windows 8 today, but like if you think about the Alt-Tab action, when I Alt-Tab on my computer, I can see Metro apps, Universal apps, whatever, desktop apps, or whatever.
Modern apps. Oh, what do we call it?
Let's call them Universal apps.
No,
We're just going to call them
But they also have like a special thing that's just for Windows 8 apps, right? So you do like a Windows key plus tab, and now you get the switcher interface, and the desktop does not factor into this little thing, right? This is just highlighting how separated these two environments are. And so in Windows 10, those differences are what goes away. That switcher thing is not going to be in Windows 10.
Right.
It's just Alt-Tab.
Okay, that I understand.
In Windows 8,
sense.
there's a snap for the desktop, and then there's a snap for the wider system. So you can snap the desktop in one half of the wider system, and then snap apps within the desktop, and it's like, what's going,
I know.
So that stuff goes away. Now it's just a snap, and it all works consistently.
And we should talk more about snaps.
We will, yeah.
Because snapping is something I hate and I never use.
Really?
Ever.
I use Snap all the time.
I used it as recently as that speech so I could take notes while using Twitter.
You
So
did.
Well, because I took, well, actually I didn't take any notes. I tweeted. So I tweeted in Tweetium, I guess.
Yeah.
Tweetium, yeah. Which is a modern app, a Metro app, whatever it's called now. Snapped, and then I had the desktop on the left. I had OneNote open, but it was the desktop version of OneNote.
You know why I don't use it? It's hard to snap.
It is hard to snap.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not intuitive. And so one of the things they're
And
going
there
to
are
change.
two of them. Like I said, there's two snap modes. And
so
it's
one thing they showed us today was this thing called Snap View, right? Is that what they're calling it?
Snap Assist.
Assist.
Yeah.
This is for people like me. It gives you a view on your screen of the two things side by side, and it lets you figure out, okay, I want to put this one here and this one here. It's a little.
Well, can we show your screen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On your, let's just explain why this is necessary, like the weather app.
Right.
So you've decided you want to run this app side by side with something else for whatever reason.
As you can tell, I've run it before because it's reinitializing now.
It doesn't matter. The point is, but
I'm in the UK for some reason.
whatever reason you want to snap this thing. So you snap it. And the way it works today is you get this blank. What is this?
I know. Right.
You have
Well,
to
how do you
know.
know?
I know, but you
have to know to do that, right? And you have to remember to
ridiculous.
do it. Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't. I mean,
so
it's
the way
one doesn't look quite right.
And
So
what
the
if
way-
you have another
Stop
app?
touching the screen.
What if you have another
So-
app from before you want to
The way that this will work with Snap Assist is that when you snap this, it will then show thumbnails of the other apps
Right.
Okay.
that you can snap.
So I don't have to do
Because
this.
Right.
you never do this
make it
to
come
leave the
out.
other half
Yep.
blank. You're always doing the next thing.
Right. Yep.
And Windows 8 is so dumb, it doesn't even give you a hint
Yep.
at what you would have to do to get that next thing up.
And in that bar for the apps, it'll actually show me everything. It's not saying, okay, just show me the
Just screwed up your
Universal.
entire computer by snapping the desktop.
I have snapped. I'm completely
Sorry about that.
But
You'll discover
that's
later
actually-
why.
That's one of those little
Yeah,
things.
it's a
right?
little thing that really messed me up about Windows 8,
Yep.
which is, wait, are you selling me two different operating
I know,
systems?
yep.
I don't understand it. How can
Yeah.
I have two sets of applications running on the same computer and they don't play
There.
well with one another?
There's a snap.
Yeah.
We're showing the video
That
there,
actually
right?
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Snap Assist is nice because it gives you the visual cue that I think 99% of the world would need.
Yep.
But they've also improved Snap so that Snap today is just columns, right? It's sort of I guess I don't know what we call it, vertical snap or whatever, left to right. Now you can go back to Windows 1.0 and tile.
Yeah.
Where you can
Horizontal
you can
snaps.
snap things on top of each
Yeah.
other, like you can see here on the screen.
That makes so much more sense. I might actually use that now.
Let me do a question that just requires wild speculation. I know we never do that
Never.
on the show, but why wasn't this the way it was designed in the first place? And I'm serious about this. This is not a throwaway. I mean, when they sat down with the original Windows 8 product team, was it, look, we want them to use modern. We need to push them to modern, and we believe that if we give them good enough apps, they're all going to abandon the desktop. So it's another way of asking, is this backpedaling and saying, okay, you don't want to use modern?
Can I swear? Is that
Swearing
is it okay?
is perfect.
Because
Alex, you got the dump button, right?
I actually heard back from Steven Sinofsky when I first originally offered this up as the reason for this and many of the other problems with Windows 8, which was how come Windows 8, blah, blah, whatever the rest of that question is. It doesn't matter. You can ask this question about anything about Windows 8. And because it was Steven Sinofsky, the answer was always, that's why. It works with everything. And so he wrote me back when I said whenever I don't know if I tweeted this or something, and he goes, it's funny, I'm just looking over the planning documents for Windows 8, and I don't actually see that as a reason anywhere.
Ooh.
Those are the super secret documents.
Yeah.
The reason is because, yes, Windows 8 was unique for many reasons, not just the combination of two operating systems into one, unholy mess, but also because for the first time, Microsoft really took a no prisoners kind of approach to Windows, where in the past they always offered you the way to go back to the old way of doing things. When they improved the start menu in Windows Vista, you could get a classic start menu for the Windows 2000 start menu or whatever it was, Windows whatever. They always offered that kind of way to go back. Even Windows 95, you could run Program Manager if you wanted to as your shell. So Windows 8, they thought they had the answer, and the one thing I will defend that they did, part of the rationale I will defend, is that they felt like they were so far behind that if they could move decisively, it would be the right thing to do. And actually, that on the surface sounds like a great idea or the right approach. But they took such a tunnel visioned way to do it. They just ended up really upsetting most of the user base and their most important user base, the enterprise.
Right, and then and developers, right?
Everybody.
If they hadn't taken the hard line with developers and then kind of wavered about, is HTML5 the right solution or .NET, and they kind of made the .NET community feel unwanted, so people didn't build Metro-style apps. And then they were like, oh, now we don't have any compelling apps to give people a reason to go to the Metro.
This just came up on last week's show. I don't remember the exact figures, but I had been looking at the Microsoft by the Numbers website for completely unrelated reasons. And they have not factoids, but facts about number of apps made, number of apps sold, number of apps downloaded between Windows and Windows Phone. And they have them separate. They're in separate little tiles. But the Windows Phone numbers are dramatically higher than Windows. And some people will say that, Windows Phone has been out for twice as long. Okay, fair enough. But I actually think it's because in Windows people have a choice. And a lot of people have simply chosen not to go to the store, or they've looked at the store and said, what is this stuff? What are these like weird Fisher Price apps? What is this? And they just don't see the value in it. I remember early on having a discussion with somebody about Metro at the time, and could Office work in this environment? What would that look like and everything? And I thought, there's no reason you can't have a professional app in this environment. And yet here we are years later. We really still don't have any really good examples of
There's
complex.
A couple. Like Microsoft built a CRM app that's pretty good, Metro-style one. There's
OneNote is in that territory.
Yeah, there's some Dynamics ERP.
Even that, I mean, you figure that if they really wanted to push that ecosystem, they would have made OneNote and Link phenomenal as apps. They would have made those things a thing that you say, that's why I want to use one. That's why I want to go to the app.
OneNote is the one I think that maybe.
You think so?
Maybe
you don't like OneNote better on the desktop?
No, I do. I use the desktop version,
Right.
but I.
OneNote Metro-style is not that bad.
I think people.
But I mean, not that bad. It's not the same as.
Not like,
that's why
better,
I would use it.
right?
It also is notable, perhaps, that it completely usurps the normal navigation and user interface of a Metro app to provide its own.
Right.
So OneNote as an app was perfect because it didn't act like an app.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next topic. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back, I want to talk about how normals would see Windows 10. Because right now we've been talking about geeks who have been lamenting for the longest time that Windows 8 isn't good for enterprise. Windows 8 isn't good for IT directors. Windows 8 isn't good for those people who actually want to get stuff done. But let's talk a little bit about some of the things that Windows 10, what we used to call Threshold, has done for the rest of us. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. But before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about presenting things.
Don't look at me.
We're all about presenting things here on Windows Weekly. But the question is, do you have a good way to present your great idea, your next big thing, the thing that's going to break you out of anonymity and make you superstar famous on the internet? Well, in order to do that, you need a site. You need something that's going to make it look beautiful. You need something that's going to make it easy for you to get your ideas out to the people. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all about Squarespace. Now, what is Squarespace? Squarespace is your one-stop shop, the easy way to get your next idea, your portfolio, your great content onto the internet without having to worry about programming, without having to worry about hosting, without having to worry about registering that perfect domain, because they are a one-stop shop, the place you go to get your ideas known. Now, I've used Squarespace personally over the last couple of years. In my real job, I work for an organization that's not known for its love of technology, but they need to be out there. And so when I'm dealing with a lot of these organizations, these smaller groups, they don't have a lot of tech-savvy people in there. So I have to give them a solution that they can update on their own after I've set it up. And it's not going to be WordPress. It's not going to be a blog. It's not going to be a website that I created over the weekend. It has to be something where they can just type, post, and be good. That's all about Squarespace. Well, some of the reasons why you're going to love Squarespace is that they're always improving their platform. This is one of the things I like about them the most. Even though they're good, they never stop and say, we're good enough. They're always making it better. Things like more and more templates, more defined templates, more refined templates. They have 25 beautiful templates for you to start with, and they recently added a logo creator tool, which is a way for you to create a unique identifier on the internet, even if you don't have the budget for a graphic designer. It's also easy to use, incredibly easy to use. If you want help, Squarespace always has a live chat and email support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but you're not going to need it because they also have a forum that lets other Squarespace users tell you how to solve the problems that you're having. Also, they have a completely redesigned customer help site for easier access to self-help articles. They also offer you e-commerce. Now, this is especially useful if you run a nonprofit or if you run a small group that wants to do fundraising. You don't have to go out and buy a big e-commerce package. If you have a Squarespace account that's eligible for e-commerce, it will be included, and it's just that easy. It also starts at $8 a month, so it's not going to break the bank. And that $8 a month includes a free domain if you sign up for a year. Now, one of the things that you developers will really appreciate is that it's mobile ready. You don't have to design a different site for a phone and for a tablet and for a desktop. Squarespace's backend will automatically adjust your content so it looks right on each device. Laptop, desktop, iPhone, Android phone, tablet. It's always going to look its best when you use a Squarespace. Even the code, if you're a coder, looking at their code, the back end makes you feel safe, knowing that these people actually know what they're doing. It's not just jumble spaghetti code. You can look through it and realize that these people have put in the time and the effort and the money into making your site look right. Squarespace also includes hosting, so again, you don't have to worry about buying yourself a domain and then a host and then a back end and then designing the front end. It really is a place to go, even if you don't know anything about programming, to get known. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to try Squarespace to see if maybe it is the perfect solution for you to get your idea, your portfolio, your project up and running. Start a two-week free trial with no credit card required and start your business today. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code WINDOWS to get 10% off and to show your support for Windows Weekly. As a special promotion for Windows Weekly audience members, Squarespace is giving away a full year of its most premium level service, valued at more than $288, to a randomly selected member of the Twit Army. Just tweet Better Websites for All with hashtag Squarespace Windows, along with @WindowsWeekly to be considered. If you currently have a Squarespace site, then post your site URL too, and we might talk about it in a future episode. We thank Squarespace for their support of Windows Weekly. A better web awaits, and it all starts with your new Squarespace. We were talking about normals.
Were we?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we're geeking out over what Windows 10 offers us in the enterprise world. I'm sorry, us in the enterprise world. Wow. Don't feel left out.
But you know, I'm the most normal one here out of the three.
Okay, so you're the normal. Give me the normal impression. If we invited the entire world of normals to come and sit down in that preview, what do you think is the one thing that they would be most excited about?
Well, I think that Snap View thing actually would be one. You know what? It just didn't look as scary as Windows 8.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing.
Right? Like when I saw Windows 8 for the first time, I just remember being like, wow, that is going to take quite a long time for me to master.
I just laughed. And I thought, I'm like, this is so excellent. You guys are so stupid.
And you know what? But
Like,
I showed
so
my
crazy.
mom Windows 8. I remember this still. My mom, who's 78 and uses a Windows PC, she looked at it and she said, you're not going to upgrade me to that, right? That's like so much harder than Windows 7. That's what normals thought.
Yeah, and right. And actually, that's, I think, the big revelation over the past couple of years, because I thought, the people who read our stuff, by and large, are not necessarily normal people, like regular people, non-technical people.
Right.
And I thought, like, anyone technical could wrap their mind around this and make it work for them and be efficient and, productive and so forth. And then, you get a lot of complaints from people who are really actually kind of stuck in whatever way of doing things that they're stuck in. But over time, you start to hear from the normal people. I hear from family members. I hear from friends. And I just use the same stories over and over again now. But, I always think of my friend who called fairly recently and said, so I just got a new PC. It has this Windows 8 thing on it. So I can put Windows 7 on this, right? And he just found it to be very frustrating. And I think that was the normal reaction to Windows 8,
Yep. They wanted it to be easy, right? That's why they made it look the way they did. And if you had a touch tablet, it was easier to use than if you had a desktop machine or something you were trying to use it on existing machine.
It was for the new stuff.
It was.
But then if you had a tablet or whatever and you're touching the screen, all the stuff you knew about Windows no longer
Didn't
worked
work
well.
Anymore, right?
You get these little tiny UI things that you're trying to hit with your finger and you can't. And so it was kind of not right for anybody, really. Not optimal for any situation.
Okay, let's talk about that. Not right for anybody. And so the popular knowledge is that, well, make it more like Windows 7. People liked Windows 7. So make Windows TH.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be 9, but now make Windows 10 like Windows 7 and everything will be good. But from what I've heard, this isn't Windows 7.
No.
And maybe that's not bad. Maybe it's not make it like Windows 7. It's make it work like or better than Windows 7. Is this better?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, so by the way, even Windows 8, Windows 8 was better than Windows 7 in ways that people never appreciated because they never gave it a chance. Windows 8 actually has tremendous improvements on the desktop side alone to things like, the storage subsystem and so forth. And all that. People see the tiles and they stop paying attention. It's like, no, I don't care. No. They stop listening.
So was it a perception thing? Because I saw this with Vista. I actually used Vista. I was happy with Vista.
Yeah.
Once I turned off, user access control and all the junk that was automatically enabled on Vista, it was actually a decent operating system.
Right.
I felt the same way with 8. Once I could automatically boot into the desktop and never have to see the tiles, I was perfectly happy. I thought it was a great OS. Was this just a perception thing?
No, it was.
No. Okay, good. All right.
No, I mean the user experience. It's important that the way you experience the system matters. It doesn't. In other words, I could list out the top 10 features in Windows 8 that aren't in Windows 7 and how they impact everybody. Honestly, it doesn't matter if you're moving your mouse around, the charms come up. You're like, ugh, I just don't want this.
Right. That's why I say it wasn't just perception.
Yeah, even in Windows 8.1, you can bring up that switcher interface with the mouse. You can bring up the charms with the mouse. You still get this little. It's eking its way into your system, and people don't like that, and I get it.
Because I still do regularly work with Windows 7 machines.
Me too.
And one thing that transferred back, I got so used to hitting the Windows keys, typing the first couple of letters of my app, and then hitting it.
Well,
and I started doing that in 7. I'm like, it doesn't work the same way.
It does sort of. I mean, you
kind
can.
of.
Yeah.
Most of the time, not always. I've had some really bad things stuck up.
Yeah.
But before we saw this today, a lot of reporters and people who had been writing about it said, you know what, this threshold thing is going to be Windows 7.5, but it's not that actually. And it's not Windows 8.5, right? It's kind of I think it's a true hybrid of Windows 7 and 8 in a way that I wish they had done that at the beginning. I wish that had been Windows 8. But it's not like we're going back to Windows 7 because there are things that are going to be more advanced than 7. And there are things that are going to be better than 8.
Right.
Maybe we should call it 9.
Yeah, that's almost.
Okay, so we've got in the chat room, we've got Elimu, who said, and this is a sentiment I hear a lot, which is, look, users are just upset because they jammed 8 down your throat.
Yes.
Which I agree. I think they did.
I do too.
But that's not always a bad thing, right? I mean, if Microsoft was always worried about jamming something down users' throats, we would still be using Windows 3.1.
Well, I don't. Microsoft is not in a position where they can win, right? So, Microsoft got a lot of flack, 10 years ago because Apple was doing things on the desktop that they weren't around hardware acceleration and transparent effects and all that kind of stuff. And so, Microsoft put all that stuff in Windows Vista, and everybody hated it. They hated the fact that those features required a higher end PC than they had, and they couldn't use their integrated graphics card, and they can't win either way. So, I would move it past that. I mean, obviously there are going to be new features in every release. They'll evolve the start menu. I mean, even moving from Windows 2000 to Windows XP, I'm sure people hated that start menu. when it first debuted. So they gave you a way to go back. That's the difference. That's the jamming it down your throat bit. They didn't give you a way to go back in Windows 8, and that's what people resented. It was it's arrogant and insulting to do that to users.
But Mary Jo, isn't it arrogant and insulting then to say, okay, well, we've listened to you, but this new iteration, this is it. We're not moving anywhere. We're going to evolve from here. Sure. We're not backpedaling any more than we have.
Okay, you know what? The thing that they're not getting a lot of credit for is, and it sounds really trite to say it, but listening to customers this time. Because when Windows 8 came out, they say they listened to customers. I don't know who those customers were. I don't know how much they listened.
Let's just call that that was baloney.
Okay.
That was
okay.
Yes.
So they said that, but this time we asked today. We said, "How did you guys already show this to a lot of customers?" They've been out on the road since February, showing people this under NDA and changing it based on what they said. So they went to enterprises and they said, "What don't you like about Windows 8?" And they showed it to them and they changed it.
By the way,
that's pretty good.
In many ways, you're kind of hinting at what might be the single biggest change, not just in Windows, but in everything else they're doing, which is, they came out with whatever they came out with today, and they are going to provide this preview release tomorrow, and we'll all look at it. And there'll be other stuff in there that they haven't talked about that will be interesting to see. But this thing is very early on, and it's going to change. But it's going to change in ways that are impacted by people giving them feedback. Somewhere out there, there's a guy or woman or whoever, some person who will say, hey, why don't you? And no one at Microsoft ever would have thought of it. It never would have made it in. But because of the way they're getting feedback now, that kind of thing can actually impact Windows and other products. They're doing this with everything. The reason that's important is because people, I can already see it. There are already people complaining, well, what do you mean they're not talking licensing? They're not talking 32-bit versus 64-bit? What about ARM? What are they going to do? There's all these questions. Yeah. It's like, guys, seriously, here's the real answer. I don't think they know the answer.
Yeah, I don't think
they literally are putting this out at a much earlier point than they ever have. And this is the new way they do things. They want, is this what you want? No, let us know what you want.
Right. And that is something, people say, oh, they're capitulating, they're backtracking.
Yeah.
You know what? It's good if they're backtracking if that's what people want.
Okay.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. I mean, there was a very hard line road that Windows was going to take, and it freaked out a lot of people. Yep. The desktop is going away. The touch is the future. And there was a significant portion of the user base that was like, what are you doing? Yeah. They got really nervous by that. And, the first thing he said today, the first line I think out of his mouth, he mentioned 1.5 billion people. Yep. And none of those people,
1.5 billion, right? Yeah.
Not none, but the vast majority of those people are using Windows not on a Mac, on a non,
not on a Mac,
on a worthless package. No, on a non-touch, traditional form factor computer.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, I really like having a touch computer. Don't use it all that much,
except for one thing. The truth is on this, like, and I go up and I do this kind of thing where, like, oh, I can't touch it. Right. A little scroll type of thing, or those big, like the big Metro buttons that you see, like you just want to. You want to tap them, and it doesn't.
I use it a lot when I'm flying.
I keep touching it.
I love that. That's great.
Well, did you know, this is off topic, but did you know you're not supposed to use a Bluetooth mouse on a plane?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I tried to use mine the other day on the plane, and
they told you to shut it down?
Yes, they did.
Mary Jo's on the do not fly list now.
I am. And I'm like, oh no, that means I'm going to have to use touch.
It's pretty much like you and the guy who was trying to light his sneaker on fire. They're in like the same category.
And I was like questioning the flight attendant. I'm like, when did this happen?
She's got a mouse.
Hold on.
Half the plane would have gathered in like one end of a hallway before someone was like, a mouse?
Well, you know what I did? I shouldn't admit this because I will be on the do not fly list. So I just put it on my lap and was still using it.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, it's been proven by the TSA that if they can't see it, it's not a security risk.
Right. There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Just wait till they figure out that if you punctured your laptop, the LiPo batteries, you could actually burn a hole through the hull.
Don't be saying this. You know what? We won't be able to carry our laptops anymore.
Especially if you have a unibody and you can't remove the battery. It's like, no, they just can't come into the plane. I'm sorry.
One thing I learned recently is, you always get those safety demonstrations on a plane, and they talk about how, if this happens and the oxygen mask comes down, make sure you do yourself first and then your kid. You know how much oxygen they have for you? It's like a minute.
I know. It's
like, so if you, like, you're not flying to Seattle with this mask on your face. Like, if they don't fix the like the pilots have more, they probably have several minutes of air, but you just have a minute or maybe 2 minutes, whatever the figure. It's a low figure, but they have to fix that issue pretty quickly. Yep. Because otherwise, you guys.
Well, it's the emergency descent. You get it down below. Alex, 14,000 feet. You're a pilot. 10,000. Get it down
Alex,
below
you've
10,000.
probably had to do this before since you're an unsafe
Yeah,
flyer.
true.
No, I think the emergency procedure is if the masks drop down, you actually elbow everybody else out the way and grab their masks.
Right.
Right.
Now you've got a full 3-4
Yeah,
minutes of life before you pass
Still
out.
we're covering this, so
Right?
just for future reference.
Windows Weekly, giving you the skills you need to survive.
And apparently
the
to fool
apocalypse.
people on an airplane that you aren't using a mouse.
I know. I just am appalled I can't use my mouse on the plane.
Oh my gosh.
Why not?
That's
But the big question is, would you use Windows at 10,000 feet during an emergency descent?
Oh, of course, because now they have the Surface that's been
Right.
certified by the FAA and whatever
right.
the European
That's
FAA
right.
is.
Yep.
Oh, no. I had a train of thought here, and it was derailed
I know.
by...
You know what? We
By an
should,
actual answer to
we should mention some information about the insiders thing, right? Because this
Yes.
is related to them listening to people too. So tomorrow on October 1st, you can go to preview.windows.com and you can sign up. I think you can even sign up today to be in the insiders program. And that means if you do that, you're going to be able to download the technical preview tomorrow. And you're also going to be asked by Microsoft to send your feedback on things that you see as features. So, they did telemetry before, right? With Windows 8, they said, oh, telemetry, yeah, we're gathering all this information and we're using that to shape the product. I know, telemetry.
I love,
No, I'm making air quotes for people
Yeah,
who
okay.
can't see that. And this time, I think they're actually going to use the feedback because they're going to flight different features to different groups.
Well, if you've ever seen a user voice type site, right?
And they're going to actually listen to what the feedback says instead of just saying, yeah, we saw your feedback.
But what does that mean? I mean, what could they do with the feedback? So you've
Okay.
kind of seen the preview.
Yeah.
What's still up for grabs?
Well, that's
what
what
can
I-
they still bake?
That's not really the point. Like, in other words, I don't think that you or I are going to come, but like, obviously they're missing this one key feature. What I'm saying is somebody out there, some person random, that is going to say, oh, because every once in a while someone will just
know.
come up with this thing that in retrospect is so obvious.
Yeah.
And
But you know what else they're going to do? They're going to say, like, let's give Paul this view of how the charms would work. Let's give Mary Jo this one. Then let's see which one, and not just us, but like thousands or millions of people. And then let's see which one people like more. We'll do that.
Okay.
So that's new. They didn't do that before. And I think they're still going to have like send a smile or a frown.
So this is like the
thing.
survivor
You know,
theory
those kind
of
of
upgrading your OS.
It is, but you know what?
Something
Why
gets
not?
voted off the
we're going to
OS.
vote the feature off the OS. Yeah.
You know what? That's
I like it.
I feel like
I would
in a way you have
WordPad
to
to
do
go
that.
away, please.
But not Notepad.
I want to bring back Clippy. If I can
Right.
get enough of my tribes people to bring back
Exactly.
Clippy. Okay, wait. Let's
No,
settle this
come
once
on.
for all. We actually have an audience full of normals right now. I don't think we have a camera on them. Thousands
Thousands of
of
people
normals in the audience
flighting
right now.
features.
If we
Several.
can have a show of hands of who thinks, just hearing what we've talked about now, that they're sold on Windows 10, that it's a time for an upgrade, raise your hands. That's at least 400 people. At least 400 people.
It looked like about 75%.
It's 75. It
think
was
so.
actually 75%.
Just eyeballing it.
And there are going to be some haters. There are.
Okay.
No, that's not. I wouldn't. I mean, yes. Okay. Actually, you're right. But I mean, there'll also be legitimate disagreements too. Not
Right.
just I hate change.
No. Right. And if you're somebody who uses Windows 8 on a touch machine and you like the way it works now, you're like, oh, I don't want all this, right? But we don't. Here's what we don't know. We don't know what the ARM version is going to look like, right? At all.
Right.
All we know
This
after
is
today
a
is
gray area.
no desktop is going to be in that version. They basically confirmed that because they said when we asked about the phones, they said, well, obviously no. I think somebody
Actually,
asked.
Put it a different way. You asked about our
Yeah.
ARM specifically.
I did. So
And they
we
just
had
went
got
off
to
on
have
some weird
questions.
sidetrack
Yeah.
about the phone, and you and I and Ed all
Yeah.
looked at each other like that had nothing to do with what you asked.
So at the end of the presentation today, we got a little Q&A. I asked, are you going to be able to upgrade every existing ARM phone and device to this new operating system? And they said, most of them. That's all they would say. So we don't know about Surface 2. We
they
don't know
literally
about
did say
Surface
most
RT.
of them. Here's how I took that though, because in their heads, ARM meant phone.
Yeah, but I
Which-
said devices and
No,
phones,
I know you did.
right?
But everything they said was about phone. It had
was.
nothing to do with Surface, ARM tablets.
That's true.
Which makes me wonder, on many levels, whether the SKU we now think of as phone becomes the tablet SKU essentially
is.
without the desktop. Okay,
Yeah.
but they think of it as phone.
I know, they do.
And when he said most of the devices, what he was really saying was, because he mentioned carriers.
He did.
He basically was saying that, just like with Windows 8.1 or whatever, Windows Phone 8.1, most of them, the vast majority of the devices are getting the upgrade.
Right.
But some of them aren't. He meant phones.
Yeah.
And he meant basically because some of these devices didn't sell very well, that the carrier won't support the update.
Right.
It was phones.
It was. Yeah.
It was so bizarre how he
know.
answered that question.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that one platform because you say that it's actually gotten better with the Windows 10 preview. But before that, I want to address something from the chat room. Bob Sacamano in the chat room has said, look, he spent the last 2 years convincing his users that Windows 8 was really okay. It was the way to go. I mean, do it. It's a lot of pain right now, but you're gonna appreciate it in the long run.
Sure.
And now he's got egg on his face. And I'm thinking this is probably going to be what a lot of IT people say, which is, look.
I don't see that.
I don't either. If you know how to use Windows 8, Windows 10 is going to be even easier for you to use.
Yeah, I use Windows 8 by and large on a Mac, on a non-touch type device mostly. My desktop computer, the Ultrabook I normally use, even a Surface Pro 3, which I would travel with normally, and I will after this trip. Again, even though there is touch, and I'll do those occasional touch things for scrolling when I'm reading and so forth, but I interact with it as I do on this device, trackpad, mouse actually, and the keyboard. And so learning those skills in Windows 8, it's not going to hurt you going to Windows 10.
No.
I mean,
I agree.
I still think I think there's a really interesting natural progression that occurs if you did move forward. And of course, the beauty of Windows 10 is that if you didn't, there's also a natural progression for you. That you've skipped a version, it's okay.
Yep.
Okay, so what about that? Windows 8 users who bought new hardware obviously will be able to upgrade to Windows 10. And if Microsoft is smart, they would make a very easy upgrade path. Windows 7 machine users, you're probably going to tell them to buy a new machine?
No.
No, not yet.
They said, I also asked about that. I said, are you going to allow everybody to upgrade? What's the compatibility going to be like? And they said mostly people will be able to upgrade. And the guideline is, we want people to upgrade. So we want to make this compatible. There's nothing in the hardware that is going to be limited by the operating system, right? And they also said, as far as apps go, that they'll also be mostly compatible. They can't promise 100% because there's always going to be one or two. It doesn't work. It's like you said, all of them, right? Yeah. So I think the goal is to make it so that whatever you have now is going to be able to run Windows 10, unless you're running like really old hardware. Then
Flame Lord is saying that the Wall Street Journal has said, well, if you're planning to buy a Windows 8 PC, don't.
I have something to say to the Wall Street Journal.
Are we going to swear again?
And that is, no.
Wait, can we have a dramatic close-up here? Because this could get personal.
No, I'm not going to say it. So I'm better than that. The point is, I think you alluded to this essentially when we were talking back there. Windows, when you move from Windows Vista to Windows 7, the system requirements went down. When you move from Windows 7 to Windows 8, again, the system requirements went down. The side effect of that, now we don't know how they're going to work with Windows 10. I'm not saying they're going to go down again, but essentially, if you have the same hardware, the next one runs better. The performance is better. There are other improvements in the system, too, around battery life and other things. So you see advantages there as well. Windows 7 class hardware, Windows 8 class hardware, obviously, is going to run this thing fine. I don't think we need to qualify that in any way. Unless you're running Surface RT, then you're screwed. But I mean, Windows 7, 8, I think will be fine.
Yeah.
And if Microsoft were to say something like, if you buy a Windows 8 PC right now, you get the automatic upgrade path.
Yeah.
Then
that's what they need to say.
By the way, one of the big rumors leading into this event was that Windows 10 now would be free for Windows 8 users. Now, they never said that. In fact, they refused to talk about licensing.
They refused to talk about pricing or licensing at all.
Yeah, which kind of makes me wonder how this came up. Except for one thing. When you go back to build and you listen to Terry Myerson talking about how they're going to bring the Start menu back to Windows and they're going to bring floating Metro Universal App Windows back to Windows, or to Windows. He described it, you recall, as a coming update to Windows 8.
Oh.
Right? Now, we've kind of, done the semantic, pedantic thing around that, or the pedantic semantic thing, however you want to say that. But it's interesting. I actually sort of feel like that rumor is based on something and is true. And when you put those two things together, it almost suggests that he was kind of saying that. Windows 10 is going to be treated as an update to Windows 8. So if you're on Windows 8, you're just going to get it possibly through Windows Update, as a very natural update. Now, Windows 7, maybe you have to pay for it. Maybe they change their minds on that. I think they really are not sure yet how to handle this.
Yeah. And they want to make some money off this, right? So Windows 7, if that's
they're not a charity,
free, right?
Sure, but
that'd be kind of crazy.
I'm wondering. I think these things might be tied together.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Caffeine-free Dave in the chat room is saying whether or not he should pull the trigger on buying a Windows 7 laptop. And I'm thinking, because I've seen the offerings from Dell, HP, and Toshiba,
right.
None of them actually offer a Windows 7 laptop. They offer a Windows 8 laptop that they've installed Windows 7 on it for you.
Yeah.
So if you buy a laptop now, even with 7, you're buying an 8 license, which means if it is an upgrade path, you should just be able to get the new
both
upgrade.
of you have the same laptop, but you both have what is essentially a traditional form factor device with a touchscreen.
Right.
Yep.
And you might even sort of just blurt it out and say, well, I don't really touch it a lot, but I bet you kind of do. I bet it becomes it's just another thing. It's natural. You don't even realize you're doing it. You know, it doesn't matter if it's only on a plane or only when you're reading something or if it's only in certain circumstances. I really do feel like that completes the picture a little. It makes it better. And like I said, I miss it when it's not there.
Yeah.
And so I would say to people, honestly, at this point, if you are going to buy a new computer, if you really need a new computer, it has to happen right now. If you can, go for the Windows 8 one with a touch if you can do it, because that will give you a better overall experience, even if you don't believe that to be true. If you don't believe it to be true, at the very least, it's not going to harm your experience.
Right.
If you never touch the screen, who cares? It's not going to,
And the price difference, once you start getting into the higher end models, the price difference of adding the digitizer is almost negligible now.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you get it?
And why not get Windows 8 PC and downgrade, right? You can have downgrade rates if you really want to use Windows 7 right now.
Right. I guess the only reason would be, what if it is literally only going to be an update for Windows 8 that's free, in which case you'd want to have Windows 8.
But then you'd have the right to upgrade to Windows 8 on your PC because you bought it with Windows 8.
Right. I guess I'm saying, why go through the effort? I mean, at that point.
Yeah, true.
Well, now this is a great time to talk a little bit about what my personal favorite topic is anytime I'm talking about any Microsoft product, and that's licensing. And of course, after this preview, they spelled out how licensing is now going to be crystal clear, completely understandable, even to the layperson, and it's just going to be one thing, right?
If they did, I nodded off during that part because,
No pricing, no licensing discussion today. Yeah.
But doesn't that have to happen before Enterprise signs on?
It does, but this isn't an Enterprise signs on thing, right? This is Enterprise take a really early look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, they just admitted that we've been talking to these guys on the side for a long time.
Yeah.
They may have already said, look, don't worry about the price.
Yeah, I'm sure they're
we got you on
testing
this
that,
one.
right?
It's okay.
Yeah, they're probably saying to them, what would you?
And actually, to be honest,
pay,
the upgrade price thing is not a concern for enterprises anyway. They're already in a
They're
service
under volume
agreement.
licensing
they're in an
deals.
agreement.
Right? Yeah.
They're slipstreamed into whatever the next release is every time.
Yep.
But if you could make them fix it, if they called you up and said, Paul, Mary Jo, we need you to tell us how we run licensing for 10.
Oh, God,
and we want to make our enterprise customers happy.
Sure.
What do you do? I mean, do you just say, okay, look, you have to have 2 SKUs. That's it. Not 40 SKUs.
In fact, while we're going nuts, why don't we just have a SKU?
A SKU.
Why even have SKUs? I've never. Well, why? I mean, why? I mean,
Enterprise wants a lot of stuff that everyday people don't want.
Right, but you can sell a product that in retail form has those things turned off and would require you to know the system to get in there and find them and do it. I mean, I'd rather just have a version. Why, it's the one thing about the Mac that I think makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually something that I've been finding. I do another show here on the Twit Network called Know How. And we do a lot of how-to projects, and I do a lot of stuff with Windows. And the funny thing is, I use a lot of my old machines, and I'm only now realizing some of them were crippled by being, the home professional or the home, what is it, home premium.
It's just,
and I have to do upgrades, and I'm just thinking, you know what? Why didn't you just include all of this in the beginning? Because you really weren't going to make any more money, and it would make it a lot easier for me to later on turn on features.
It reminds me of when you go to buy a car, and then there are like these dealer options they can add at the end, and it's kind of a way just to gouge you.
Yep.
The SKU stuff came out of Office because those guys saw great success at one point, probably 10 years ago, having multiple SKUs. You'll notice at Office, by the way, the mainstream normal way to get Office now is through Office 365. There are no versions of Office. It's just it's basically Pro Plus, but you get whatever you get with Office 365. You don't think about that stuff anymore. I just think that is just another example of complexity and putting the onus on the user, and it's stupid. And people resent you for that. When you go to run, like now I want to use my own computer with work. What do you mean I can't sign into
Yeah.
the domain?
Right.
That kind of thing. It's ridiculous.
What if they did that? So I love 365 in that it's the $99 a year.
Yeah.
You get all your applications, plus you get that crazy large amount of storage in SkyDrive. What if they said, okay, you know what? Windows is now part of that package. $99 a year, you get all your applications. They're automatically updated along with your OS.
Maybe. I mean, we talk
Is
about
that a
this kind of thing a
strategy?
lot. I mean, they've discounted and somebody, I think one of the questions actually
It was.
mentioned is the platform as a service.
Yeah.
Is that how they said it?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe. Obviously, the key to the Office 365 licensing is how liberal it is.
Yeah.
5 PCs, 5 tablets, unlimited on the handset apps, extra storage. It's all that you get all this stuff. It's like a no-brainer. And so if they could do something like that, it would have to be a real no-brainer.
It would.
People are accustomed to acquiring Windows with a new computer. That's how they get it. They don't think of it as a Windows well, it is a Windows version, but this is the one that comes with this computer.
Yeah.
It's not really a normal act for a normal person to upgrade to a new version of Windows on a computer. It's
Right.
just, I mean, we do it, but
Yeah.
it's not that's not a normal consumer.
No, I never do it because like I said, I'm the normal one here, and whatever I get on my PC is what I keep on my PC. I don't. I never
that
move
said,
to a new version.
obviously we do that with smartphones though, and tablets, and those are different, simpler devices. The problem with the Windows upgrade is if you let somebody, my grandmother, my mother, whoever, do that and it doesn't work. I mean, there's no Apple store to go to, that's going to fix this problem for you. It's a problem.
But the other thing that we think is coming with Windows 10, it's hard not to call it Threshold anymore, but Windows 10.
Or Windows TH.
Right.
I really latched onto that.
I know
name
you
in
did.
In the 24 to 36 hours that was a viable name.
That we think it's going to adapt to the SKU. I mean, to the hardware, right? So different things are going to be turned off and on. It's going to know, like, I'm on a 2-in-1 or I'm on a clamshell laptop, right?
Yeah, and if you want to, you can override that.
Right.
Just like today in Windows 8, if you wanted to, for some reason, boot into the start screen and not the desktop on a non-touch computer, you can make it do that.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't talk about Continuum.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
We will.
Am I going out of order? I'm sorry.
No, we absolutely.
There's no order.
But I'm with you. I mean, I don't have to worry about upgrades. In fact, every time Windows comes out with a new patch, I just buy a new laptop. I've got
That's what normal people do.
Hundreds of laptops under my bed right now. Because I don't want to be bothered by upgrading.
No, that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is every time you need a new computer, you buy a new computer, and it has whatever version of Windows it has on it. And by the way, that's the example of how disruptive Windows 8 was, because at some point during that couple of years Windows 8 has been in the market, my sister, my parents, my friend Chris, whoever, all. Well, just buy a new computer like I always do every 3 to 4 years or every 5 years, whatever it is. And then what is this? And then you get that reaction. So there's a delayed reaction because they happened not to buy exactly in October 2012. They bought last year, this year, and now they're really upset about it.
Yeah. I've been trying to upgrade my parents to 8, and they keep wanting to go back to 7.
Yeah. That's not the reaction you want your user base to have.
No.
One of the best, I do this all the time, when you make an upgrade of any kind, an operating system, an Office suite, or any application, whatever it is, go back and use the old version. And when you start missing stuff that you're used to now and you kind of don't even realize you care about, that's how you know that that's a good upgrade. When you go back to an older version and you're like, you failed, right? You as the operating system maker have failed. I mean, that's the exact opposite of what you want.
Well, I think we can all agree that Windows Thurrott is pretty complicated. I mean, as the story develops, Windows Thurrott it's going to take some time to get through, but what's not going to take some time? What's not going to be complicated?
What?
Sharing files.
Really?
Yeah. That's a segue, by the way.
I figured it.
Okay. Now, anyone who's had to do sharing of files in an actual business, in an enterprise, it's not just a matter of syncing up. You want something that's going to allow you to know whether or not your colleagues are getting the information that they need to get. And that's why here at Twit, we recommend that you use ShareFile by Citrix. Now, what is ShareFile? It would be easy to say that ShareFile is just another way to get files to your colleagues and to the people who need to make decisions, but it's not. It's a different way of sharing that information. Now, in businesses, we are constantly sharing pieces of data that we need to make sure other people are actually getting. And we also need to make sure that we can keep the revisions and keep the security on the files the way that we want it. That's what ShareFile by Citrix lets us do. In essence, it's a way to make sure that the files are not just exchanged securely, but also that you know who has actually read that document that you just sent them, who has actually opened up the file that you told them they need for the next meeting. In the Brick House, whenever we need to share a time-sensitive document, we use ShareFile because we don't just want to let someone accidentally delete something from a folder and then watch it desync, delete from every other folder from every other user's computer. That's sort of the old school way to do it. We're just more advanced than that here at Twit. Now, with Citrix ShareFile, you can send files of almost any size, which means no bounce back. You don't have to worry about emailing an attachment and then just worrying if someone's mailbox was big enough to accept it. ShareFile automatically syncs so that you and your team will have the most updated materials across all devices, and you can use ShareFile from anywhere, from your laptop, from your tablet to your smartphone, which allows you to access, to edit, to share, and request files on the go. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, why wouldn't I just use one of those other sync file services? There's plenty out there to choose from. Well, ShareFile is different. I think the best way I can look at it is, rather than saying, here's a big pile of information, a big pile of books, you're creating a curated library of data, and you're making sure that you know who has looked at what time. That's the thing about ShareFile. It's not just a big mess of data. It's curated, secure, premium data. Was that dramatic? Was that a pause? Fantastic. Now, here's what we want you to do, and actually, here's what Leo wants you to do. Leo wants you to try ShareFile. If you've never used something like ShareFile, if you've never used a curated data syncing service, then give it a try. You can try it free for 30 days with no obligations if you sign up today. Just go to sharefile.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and enter Windows. That's WINDOWS, just in case you can't spell it, even though you're watching Windows Weekly. Remember, visit sharefile.com and type in the code WINDOWS to share your love with Twit and Windows Weekly. And we thank Citrix and ShareFile for their support of Windows Weekly. Now, what were we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about some more of the features.
Features? I like features.
So we should actually address some of the enterprise stuff that they talked about, although it was very vague. I'm very eager to look into some of this.
That kind of bothers me because the whole idea was this enterprise preview, and now you're telling me that the enterprise preview was actually very vague.
Yeah. So Microsoft mentioned the MDM, meaning the mobile device management capabilities, and vaguely noted that in this release, you would be able to use their MDM solution, which is essentially Windows Intune / System Center, to manage, today it's Windows 8-based devices, the mobile half, Windows RT devices, obviously, and Windows Phone. And then non-Windows devices can be managed this way, iOS and Android and so forth. But they're adding that capability to the desktop and also to the headless devices that will come in the future, the Windows IoT type devices. So it's not really clear how that's going to work. They'll still offer the granular, group policy / Active Directory-based management, but they're going to allow this as well. And what I think this does is allow a different, I guess technically in some ways it's not necessarily an enterprise feature, but it opens up management possibilities to smaller businesses that can't handle or would never do Active Directory / group policy. And it also enables enterprises to have a mix and match, whereas today they would have to have only mobile devices being managed by these non-Active Directory type methods. And so not a lot of details there, but I'm kind of interested in that that stuff. So we'll look at that.
Yeah. They just, after the event was over, they put up a blog post.
Oh, they did. That explains it.
Windows for Your Business blog.
Okay.
And it talks about a couple more of the enterprise features that they did not talk about during the event. So they talk there about the fact that you're going to be able to not just sideload apps anymore if you have custom apps for your business, but there's going to be a way to go through the store and get those apps. That's one thing. They said there's going to be some new security and identity capabilities that we
they
heard
mentioned
a little bit about.
They literally said the word identity once.
They did. But this talks about they're adding some new functionality for theft and phishing prevention specifically. They're not getting into a lot of details on that yet because it's under the hood stuff, and maybe not all of that's going to be in the preview at this point because the preview is so early. And they're also going to have a way that enterprises can decide to block these monthly or however often updates. So they're going to tie that somehow to Windows Server Update Services, WSUS,
Okay.
so that you as an administrator can say, you know what, I don't want to get this pushed to me every single month when you guys have new stuff. I want to choose when I push these features out to my users. So there is going to be some kind of a level of control for users that a lot of enterprises were worried about. They're saying, whoa, I don't want everything every month that they're going to push to me. I'm not ready for that. So there is going to be a way to kind of dial that back.
Yes and no.
So all of those things are coming. If you go, if you look on blogs.windows.com, you can see this whole list of things that they just put up after the event. We'll hear more about that, I'm sure, after people start getting their hands on the bits next week.
Hands on the bits.
Hands on the bits.
Hands on the bits.
That's
An old reference, right?
That's an old programming.
I know, right?
Hands
on the bits. Yeah. So yeah, all those things are coming. And then this thing we talked about, Continuum.
right.
Yes.
So Continuum, it's not in the build that people are going to get tomorrow. But what it is a way that Microsoft's building into the operating system detection for whether you have a keyboard connected to your device or not. So if you take the keyboard off, there's going to be a little kind of dialogue box that comes up, and it'll give you a back button right on your taskbar so you can start using that.
Well, in other words, it asks you, do you want to go into tablet mode?
Right. You want to be in a tablet mode. You want to be able to
yes.
use that to go back and make it more intuitive as a user that, hey, that's how I should interact with this now. When you put the keyboard back on, it picks up where you left off, and it just...
I think they call it keyboard mode. I can't remember that
Keyboard
one.
mode and tablet mode or
think so.
something?
Yeah,
Or-
I'm not
I forget. But they showed us a little preview of that, even though it's not going to be in the preview.
Right.
So wait, how does this work? It's just, it knows what's connected to it
Well-
and it reconfigures itself?
Yeah, so in other
Kind of,
words,
yeah.
remember the fundamental disconnect in Windows 8, right? You've got these two environments side by side. Okay.
Yeah.
But then we have these devices that are 2-in-1s that kind of give you the best of both worlds. You can use it like a tablet, or you can use it with a keyboard. That presents its own problem because on a traditional computer, you're going to use it, like a traditional OS. On a tablet, you're going to use it like a tablet. You're going to touch it. But what about this thing that can do both, right? And so now they give you the opportunity to go back and going back and forth between what are essentially two modes, a tablet mode and a keyboard mode. And they're still. That's one of those ones that it's not in there. They want to get feedback on it, make sure they're doing it the right way. And so maybe that appears in the consumer build or whatever early next year, which is another thing we need to talk about is schedule.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So now that we've talked a little bit about the features that we can expect to see when Windows 10 finally makes it to the street.
Yep.
When will Windows 10 finally make it to the street?
So they actually said officially today we're targeting by mid-2015.
Oh, they said mid-2015.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
Did you hear?
I didn't hear that, but
What did you hear?
Later in the year.
I thought they said we're targeting
I'm not saying I just didn't hear it.
mid-2015.
Okay, did they? I didn't hear it.
I thought they did.
I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just.
But that's street release. So if the street gets it mid-2015, when do manufacturers get it?
Earlier than that.
Well, I obviously the
well,
goal.
there's a WinHack.
Not after.
There's a WinHack. Did you hear? They're bringing
That's
WinHack
right. Yeah,
back.
WinHack.
By the way,
coming
well,
back.
no, there's more than a WinHack. There's going to be several WinHacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not one big thing anymore,
Right.
right? It's sort of like
I
major
don't.
fairs.
None of this is going to be tied to.
A lot of people don't remember WinHack. Windows Hardware Engineering Conference.
Yep.
Which
WinHack
is
was the best.
It was
They
the
had
best.
really nice parties.
Well, here's why it was
I
the best.
remember that.
No, because when you think about you're making a new platform, typically Windows, but not always Windows, and you're going to disclose information about this to the outside world, and so you would start with the low-level device driver writer types, the hardware guys, because they were the ones that were going to make the devices and PCs and things that would run this system. So they were always first.
Yep.
That was WinHack.
Yep.
And then you would have a PDC for regular software application developers. And then you would have Tech Ed, obviously, and you could show off the business features there. And then you'd have an event, whatever it might be, just for consumer features. But it always started at WinHack, and that's why WinHack was cool. You could go to WinHack and really early on find out about what they were doing. It was where we would see the hardware accelerated graphics that were going to be in Longhorn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Remember at the time they were going to scale the apps. You were going to be able to take an app and stretch it out and scale it, but manually. And of course, it never happened in the OS. But the WinHack was cool.
Yeah. So they're bringing that back, and it's going to be in March. So that's kind of a clue, right? They're going to be talking to a lot of, well, they're already talking to OEMs, but they're going to talk even more intensely to them starting in March. So that means the OS will be very close to being baked.
Yeah, so I would say before that happens, there will be a consumer release. They said very early.
They said early 2015 for the consumer release.
January, I've heard.
So that's the one that's going to run on ARM.
Yeah, and we'll include a phone version, right?
we'll
So if you're
include a
waiting for the, and that's, maybe that's when the Surface guys get good news.
Or the bad news.
They're going to get news. Either way.
So wait. This May 2015 date, that's across all platforms.
So May 2015, May 2015 is a rumor.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, no,
I didn't hear that.
so we've heard mid
Well,
2015.
Mid 2015.
we know April is the developer release its build. So they're having another build.
Another
That's
build in April. Yep.
So we know early 2015 for consumer. We know April for developer.
Right.
And beyond that, we just...
Oh, no, and we know sometime very soon for server and the management tools.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So I think that's going to be...
That's this year, though.
Tech Ed Barcelona. That's my
Yeah, I
guess.
do too, yeah.
In late October.
Yeah. That's an obvious time.
Yeah. So those are the dates that we know and can kind of extrapolate from. So
They could release the next version of server and just say, we got rid of the start screen, and they would get a standing ovation.
Right.
And that would be all they need to do.
is,
That's
threshold
all they need to
server.
do.
How do you run a server without a start screen? I don't understand that. I mean, it's impossible.
Tiles?
Interesting.
Tile world.
It's that special stop bash tile.
Yeah. Right.
The goofy thing is, I distinctly remember talking to those guys the first time they showed it off, and I was like, "Oh, come on!" And I don't remember. It wasn't. I don't remember who. It doesn't matter who it was, but somebody from the server team said, "No, you don't understand. We're going to be able to make all these great little in-tile status update things. It's going to be like a dashboard that will show you the health of your server. It's going to be awesome." And I thought, okay, actually, that does sound awesome. I don't think there's been a single tile made that does anything.
It doesn't sound
like
awesome because unless you're just running one server in your data center,
Sure.
you've got racks and racks of virtualized servers. You're not going to have an at-a-glance view of every server that's there.
But what I'm describing is so pretty. Why
It is pretty, but
Yeah.
now what would have been pretty is if there was a tile view I could run on a Windows 8 client that showed all
Yes.
my servers. Now
Sure.
that's actually useful. That I would buy.
And by the way, it does not require a start screen on the server. Just a thought.
Yeah.
If only there was some way of instrumenting a server and getting information back from it. Anyway,
No one's figured that one out.
someday.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting that we kind of have the roadmap.
I hope you're right about the mid thing. I didn't hear that.
We have to go back and listen to the... By the way, the video is available on YouTube now of today's presentation.
So what I would say, though, is that regardless of the exact date, I mean, I think the thing they have to hit is actually hit in time for the back-to-school season.
I think so, too.
Actually hit it. Like not ship in October, which is the worst time ever for releasing a product like that. And, back-to-school actually starts kind of in June, doesn't it? I mean, it really starts early. Back-to-school starts when school ends.
Yep.
I got to ask. I'm excited by Windows 10. I actually like Windows 8. I think Windows 10 will probably replace the remainder of my Windows 7 desktops.
Sure.
But why now? Why do this event now? If we're talking about a mid-2015 release, this seems far off, especially if they're not giving you a lot of specifics.
But I think that's
a special event.
That's the point. And so you'll see this in other areas soon, right? It's not just Windows, but Microsoft is opening up earlier than ever before and is giving people the chance to really impact a product more than before. And I think that's the big deal.
Yep.
They really want to. They really screwed a lot of people over with Windows 8, and they want to make sure they get this. No, they did. I mean, they want to make sure they get this one right. And I applaud that. I mean, it's smart.
I agree.
Yep.
And, if you're a developer, this is not a traditional developer's preview, but it still can give you some ideas already about
I can't wait
how
for
you're gonna
Raphael to get his hands on this thing.
How you're going to restructure your app.
There will be new features that are not exposed that he will.
A lot of the API stuff will be in there. And, it'll be interesting.
Is that it? Windows 10 is in the bag? I'm sorry, no, Windows Thurrott is in the bag.
Windows TH.
I think you should make a pact. On this show, it's always Windows Thurrott.
Yeah. So what are you talking? What is it? This thing you keep referring to? It doesn't make any sense.
You know what we used today when the event started? We were like, "What are you guys using as a hashtag?" As we tweet this, and nobody had a hashtag, so I used WTH. And people were going like, "What are you doing?" Like I'm like, "It's Windows."
Oh, the other thing they did, which is, by the way, I don't often give Microsoft credit for having a sense of humor, but when we signed in the outside, they gave you like a name tag, which you pop on your shirt, and then they have this little stack of cards, which they hand you one, and on the card it says Windows 2015.
Yeah.
And so, of course, everyone was like,
Wait a minute.
And so we walk in the room. It's like, are they telling us the name of this thing? It's 2015. You know,
People were taking pictures of it and going, it's
Was that deliberate, or did someone just not?
No,
think
it was deliberate. It was the Wi-Fi password.
It was the Wi-Fi password for the event. Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
So there are a few people at Microsoft who understand that this has to be a little tongue in cheek because Windows 8.
They're pretty clear on yeah. I would give them credit for that.
And is this the new Nadella regime? The whole idea of we're going to tell you more quickly, we're going to let you have more input, we're going to make us make Windows
here's
better.
how I think of this. And so Nadella, Meyerson today sort of alluded to this. He didn't really go down this path too far, but in the world of today, Windows is kind of the minority platform compared to mobile devices like smartphones and tablets. In that world, Microsoft is going to put its mobile apps and services on all of these popular platforms. They're going to do it sometimes before they do it on Windows. And that's going to make some people upset, but that's just the reality of the situation. In that world, how do you retain the crowd of people that still cares about Windows, and how do you make them part of the process and all that kind of stuff? I think this is how you do that, because those MSN apps are going to be available on iOS and Android. Office is going to be available on Android soon in a very full-featured version.
And let's be honest, it's also how do we appease people that we really cheesed off with the last release?
A lot of which are the people spending lots and lots of money on Windows, like the enterprise. So I think there's there's bad news there depending on your point of view, but there's good news too. And I think the way they're doing this is correct. I think it's good.
Agree. Yeah.
Okay. Now, if they want to find out more information, of course, they have to go to the WinSuper site. You've got a great blog post up.
Mary Jo also has,
one. All
a few
about
blog
Android.
posts,
But now we need to talk
All about Android.
all about Windows.
We have an Android show.
All about
I'm sorry.
Microsoft. Wait, it's all about Microsoft.
It's just all.
It's
jumbled
always
up in
all
here.
about Microsoft.
I've got the schedule in my head. It's always about Windows. What's this
about
Android
Windows.
thing I'm speaking of? I'm speaking in tongues.
Uh-oh. The voice
Love
of
you,
Android.
Jason.
The last time a Jesuit priest was speaking in tongues. Oh, never.
We got suppressed in 1776. That was bad.
Yes.
But now we have to get to the really important part of the show. This is the part that I think every week is what actually saves lives.
I agree.
Beer.
Oh, yeah.
Let me
I
bring
was
up,
like, what are we talking about?
Let me bring up my Untapped.
Oh, yeah.
Can you remember any of the beer?
We don't have a doc, but I slightly remember that we need a beer of the week. If we don't have a beer of the week, the show is just not complete,
It's not
right?
the same.
We should mention, when you're in San Francisco and you live in this area, obviously there are great breweries here, Lagunas and so forth, but when you're in the city of San Francisco,
The place to go, everyone, if you love craft beer, is the McKellar Bar in San Francisco. If you've never been there, it's on Mason Street, down near the convention center.
yeah,
They have an incredible beer
this
list.
won't be the pick, but that was really good.
It's McKellar is. There's two brothers. There's one whose last name is McKellar, one who's his identical twin who makes beer under Evil Twin. So there's McKellar and Evil Twin beers, and they're some of the best craft beers in the world. So this bar has about, 30, 40 beers on tap, and each beer is served at the correct temperature. So the beer list tells you what temperature the beer
beautiful.
is served at. It's
This
really,
is the real deal. It's amazing. And
I made Paul go there yesterday.
I went kicking and screaming. Let me tell you.
We both had gotten off the plane. We were both so tired, and I go, you need a beer, and I'm like, let's go to the McKellar Bar, and
she said something. She said she texted me and she's like, I saved you a spot at the bar, and I was like, yep, thanks.
he was right there. Yeah.
I see the seat. Thank you.
Yeah. So So we had a couple beers there yesterday.
The only place I'd ever seen Danish, it's Danish, right?
Yeah.
Danish beer was actually, it was in Europe. And when we went to Brussels a couple summers ago, we went to the, I just forgot the name of the brewery. I'm losing my mind. Never mind. We went to a brewery. Anyway, Danish beer, and it was unbelievable. And I thought, we're never going to get this in the United States.
Huh.
And then you come to San Francisco and here it is.
Now, you were on Padres Corner not too long ago, and you tried to explain to me the different types of beer, and it just it went. I'm like alcohol. I get the alcohol. That's about it. But what is this beer? What's unique about it?
Well,
it's all kinds of different.
Yeah,
beers,
this bar has all different styles too. So there's like really light Berliner Weiss. They have sours. They have.
I was going to say between the two of us, we had sours, wheat beer. We had a quadruple, like an Abbey quad.
And you had that giant sausage thing.
They also have, this is the other thing. This is the, let me explain.
I watched.
There were,
I did not even touch
this is another area where the
gigantic.
United States often falls flat. They had 5 kinds of
I know.
bratwurst there.
They did. Bratwurst, sorry. I just called it sausage. But, yeah.
Really good.
You just insulted an entire people.
I think I did. Yeah. But we tried a few different ones. Yeah. I had, what was the one I had? Well, they had Beer Geek Breakfast on, which is like one of the most awesome beers ever. But yeah, they just had so many good ones. I don't even know what to make the beer pick of the week because there were just so many good ones.
Yeah.
So the beer pick of the week is
It's
a bar.
the bar,
Is
maybe.
the bar, yeah.
Next time you're in San Francisco, you have to stop by.
If you
the
were
Mike
seriously,
Keller.
if you're a Busch
McKellar.
beer aficionado, you want to.
Yeah.
You want to. This is a stop.
Yeah, it's a great place,
Yeah.
and it's so close to the convention center. Even though Oracle World was in town this week, we avoided most of the Java
those-
geeks.
They're more of a wine crowd. I'd
They are
say.
such losers. Those guys. Yeah,
Well, it was funny. We're in a cab line, and Paul and I are waiting, and Paul just yells at some guy with the badge, "You're wasting your life!" I'm like, "Paul, stop."
like seriously, they have it was a slogan. It was something like "Program the future."
You
and
know what?
like,
It's just like a .NET conference.
Program the
Sorry,
past.
it is.
It is, except it's irrelevant. You know, like it is.
Wow.
Oh my, so pointless.
By the way, this is the perfect time to announce that we are releasing a new show on the Twit TV network called This Week in Oracle with Paul Thurrott.
Right. I'm just gonna drink.
This week in Java.
Right. I'm gonna hit a data source with Java, and then I'm gonna kill myself. No, it's just whatever. I'm
Now
sorry.
that I've just insulted half of the developers
I know,
on
you kinda
the
have.
planet, but
Yeah.
that's cool.
I think those guys understand that that's why they call it a job. You know.
Wow.
I know. Wow. Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I thought we were just talking about beer, not drinking it. But app of the week.
Well,
Oh.
I was going to say we have this preview you can download tomorrow, and so I think the app pick of the week has to be the Windows Technical Preview, which will be available starting tomorrow. So, head over to. I guess I just looked. You can't sign up today, but starting tomorrow sometime, we don't know.
Yep. Preview.
Preview.windows.com, and you have to sign up for the Windows Insider program. Is that the right name? And then you get access to the bits, x64, x86 only.
Yep.
Windows PCs and tablets.
Yep.
You can upgrade from Windows 7 or Windows 8.
Yes.
Nice.
And
So
you should.
beer, Windows 10. What more could you want?
Right.
I know.
So before we go, Paul, we have a couple options of branding for the next version of Windows. just want to run by you.
Okay. Nice. I like it.
Wait, did you just make that?
Somebody sent it in.
It's awesome.
Nice.
Windows TH.
I like the gradient. This is nice.
So this picture leaves out the best part of the photo, which is the oysters that I'm eating. And this was actually, I think, at the last PDC they held, or one of the first builds in I was with Long Zhang
Oh yeah. Okay.
when this picture was taken.
This one's okay, but the black and white, the artistic, the airbrush
I'm
one.
seeing some new site branding here.
I think this is. Actually, that's not bad. That could be the new Win Super Site.
Right.
I think it could.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was
Or
so
when
excited.
you talk about Android, you
Exactly.
could use that.
Windows
All about
TH.
Android.
I got so excited by that.
Oh man.
Folks, this bit of craziness has been Windows Weekly, of course, with Paul Thurrott, again, the brain behind the Win Super Site, or as we now know him as Paul Windows Thurrott,
Or the Paul Oracle lover.
Paul Oracle lover, Java user Thurrott.
Yeah.
Right.
What's going on at the site? Is there a new project other than, of course, Windows 10 that they need to drop by and see?
I can't remember anything else anymore. Yeah, it's going to be Windows 10 for a little while. Let's put it that way. I mean, obviously, between the stuff I haven't been able to post yet today and then getting to build tomorrow, I mean, I think you can rest assured the next few days are going to be heavy on that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to start digging through the preview.
Yeah.
You're going to have it installed tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll be story after story after story.
And just, I don't know if no one asked, but I mean, they didn't make this build available to anybody
No.
ahead of time. So
Really?
Nobody
I mean,
had
if they're
it.
going to have it tomorrow, you figured they'd just at least send you home.
no,
with it.
they
Nope.
were. Yeah, no, we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
That was.
Oh.
Well, because when this September, I don't remember, maybe Joe, whenever this came up first, the September 30th date, I remember at least you mentioning it to me, and I said I have never heard anything but early October for the build, and that hasn't changed, and it was a weird.
Yeah.
And so when they announced the date was September 30th, I was like, he's still saying it's October, and so it was weird because obviously we have the event and then the code. And why don't they give us the build? Because they hate us. I don't know. Yeah. Who
So
knows?
all you got were little sandwiches.
Listen,
little
this is what I did.
And
Yeah.
no USB key.
11 and a half hours of air travel, 45 minutes in a room, and no code. Perfect trip.
I think
Perfect.
you can file a grievance. But you got beer.
We did go to, yes.
We did.
You did get
We get to
beer,
go to
and you got to
McKellen.
And
make
there will
fun
be
of the
more
Oracle
beer
people.
in approximately 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
That's Paul Thurrott at the Paul Windows Thurrott super site.
At the Windows Thurrott. Yeah.
Windows Thurrott super site. And of course, Mary Jo Foley from All About Microsoft, ZDNet's blog.
Not all about Android.
Not
No,
all
not
about
all about
Android.
Android.
Anytime I hear all about, I want to fill it in with Android. It's my thing now.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Is
He has
that
a
a thing?
problem.
Because we have an incredible show here on the Twit TV network, run by I can't remember who, but it
Yeah. No, it doesn't
That
sound
guy?
familiar.
sounds a little
guy.
bit familiar. It's like it's
Is it
one
a
of these
woman?
things that
I
sticks in
can't-
your head.
Can't. Sarah Lane?
It may be Sarah Lane, but of course,
Is there a castle freak behind us? What's
Yes,
going
I
on
think
here?
there is.
we have a weird setup here in the brick house. There's actually 40 people behind this wall.
Right, right,
So
right.
it's like a little sweatshop.
Nice.
Jason's actually half a mile away. He's just really.
I don't know
tall.
if you could hear this through the microphones, but it sounds like when a squirrel's going to town on a
does.
nut.
Yeah, it
like,
does.
it was.
Totally does. I was wondering what was back there the whole show. I was like, what's going on?
It's like a little
back there?
squirrel going.
He's actually got a bowl filled with wrappers and the cellophane can.
That's
Yeah,
it.
nice.
It's
Yeah,
one of the allures.
I believe that.
Of course, you're going to be going through Windows 10 line by line. You're going to be showing people what the preview
Oh, yeah.
looks like. What do they need to go to other than All About Windows?
All about Microsoft.
Microsoft.
Like,
You're having a little problem
I'm
with my
having
site
issues.
name, perhaps.
All About Microsoft.
.com.
.com. A ZDNet blog.
It is.
I am so fired.
Do you
You're
need
so
Java
outta
to
here.
view your website?
Yeah, I think he does. What else am I going to be doing? Well, I'm not going to be going through the preview as detailed as these guys, but as a normal person who is afraid of Windows 8, I think I'll be
arguably
a
your
good,
feedback is far
I
more
think my
important.
feedback may be good. And
I'd be online with that.
then my other big thing is I'm going to Tech Ed Barcelona at the
Yeah.
end of October. So when they start talking about Windows Threshold Server and System Center Threshold,
And Intune, there's going to be some good
Intune,
stuff.
I think I'll be right there.
We never touched on this, but one of the things Microsoft is doing, and I assume this is going to be part of Windows 10, is they're extending those MDM capabilities to apps,
Right.
to data, and to
Yep.
user identity.
Yep.
And those are three areas that the other competitors in that space don't all hit on.
Right.
Usually they only hit on one or two of the four major categories. So we've had device management for a long time through EAS and
Right.
Intune now, but I think you're going to see a lot
Yeah,
of that
me
stuff.
too.
That's actually huge. That
It is.
idea of persistent identity through your
Yep.
devices.
Yep.
I can't stress enough how big of an advantage that would give Microsoft.
Yeah.
I think they're
There's
uniquely
finally a
positioned,
reason
yeah.
to have a Windows
Right.
phone and a Windows tablet.
Yeah. And another reason to buy Office.
A good reason. A good reason.
I think the Xbox Live games on Windows Phone were already using, but I see what you're saying.
What about Minecraft?
Right?
You mean a microcraft?
Microsoft Craft.
Minecraft?
Yeah.
Microcrime?
Hey, Paul, we got an update.
Yes. Now with the oyster. Nice. Wow.
That's awesome.
This is not.
It should be that little mini egg thing.
This will not end well.
No, it will not. There's going to be more
That
modifications.
day ended great. That was like a MSDN party on the top of that hotel in Las Vegas.
Oh,
Remember?
was that party?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, man.
The chat room's fast. They
are
can make
fast.
anything you need
Wow.
immediately.
That was some time ago, though.
That was.
I can't remember, but
By the way, Alex, save those because seriously, those are some nice graphics. You should consider using those on the super site.
those are actually really nice. Other than that, I'm in them, but yeah.
Don't forget that we normally broadcast Windows Weekly on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. This is a unique time because of the event in San Francisco. But you can find us at the show page at twit.tv/WW Windows Weekly. There you'll find not just all of the episodes. You can download previous episodes, but you can also find a place where you can subscribe to our RSS feed, which means you can get Windows Weekly automatically on your device of choice, your iPhone, your Android phone, tablet, Mac, PC, desktop, laptop, whatever it may be. You want to stream it to your high-definition TV, that's the place to go. Also, don't forget that you can find Mary Jo Foley at the
Thank you.
All About
Thank you for
Microsoft.
visually assuring that was the right
I have
place.
All about
I've had a
Android.com.
really long episode, so all about Microsoft.com, Paul Thurrott at the Win Super site. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballecer, probably forgetting a whole lot of stuff, but how do we end the show?
Let's just say goodbye.
Goodbye.